There's a mailbox on a dirt road outside Bamberg County with a name still painted on the side. Faded red letters. Nobody's picked up mail there since 2011. The house behind it has 41 acres attached to it. Pecan trees. A pond. A tin roof that's mostly still a roof. You could buy the whole thing for less than a used pickup truck costs in Charleston. Nobody wants it. Not because it's a bad deal. Because of what it takes to actually live there. The well that needs redrilling. The septic system nobody's inspected since Reagan was president. The nearest grocery store 40 minutes away. That's the trade nobody tells you about when they show you the price tag. I'm going to walk you through 10 of these properties. Real acreage, real farmhouses, sitting across South Carolina right now for prices that don't make sense until you understand why. Some of them are genuine steals. A couple of them will make you understand exactly why the last 3 owners gave up and walked away. And that mailbox I mentioned? Hold on to it. We're coming back to it before we're done. If you've ever daydreamed about owning land and just didn't know where to start looking, stick around and subscribe. Because by the end of this list, you'll know exactly what cheap actually costs. Let's start at number 10. Number 10 is a farmhouse outside Blackville, in Barnwell County. It's sitting on 22 acres that used to grow cotton. The asking price is $39,000. To be exact, that's less than a lot of down payments on a starter home in Greenville. The house itself is a 4-room farmhouse built in 1948. Heart pine floors are still intact under decades of dust. The land around it hasn't been actively farmed in almost 15 years. That means the soil has had time to rest. Good news if you want to plant again. Bad news because the fields are now thick with young pine and blackberry bramble. It'll take real labor to clear. Barnwell County's population has dropped by roughly 1 in every 8 residents over the past 2 decades. That's not a headline. That's just what happens when the mill closes. The young people leave for Columbia or Charleston and don't come back. The land stays. The buyers don't. Here's the thing about a place like this. The price is real, but so is the isolation. Nearest hospital, 25 minutes. Nearest anything, a real drive. That trade-off follows us through this entire list. Number 9 takes us to Allendale County. It's one of the poorest counties in the entire state. 110 acres with a farmhouse and a collapsed tobacco barn recently listed for $52,000. In fairness, that number sounds almost fake for that much land. It isn't. Allendale's property values collapsed after Interstate 95 rerouted traffic away from the old Highway 301 corridor decades ago. The county never really recovered. Motels closed. Diners closed. Land got cheap and stayed cheap. The farmhouse needs a new roof, full stop. No soft pedaling that one. But the acreage includes river bottom land near the Savannah River. It's some of the most fertile soil in the state. And it's sitting there mostly unused. Buy this one, and you're not just buying a house. You're betting on a county that the rest of South Carolina drove past for 50 years. Number 8 sits in Hampton County. And this one's a little different. It's a working homestead a local farmer named Ray put on the market after his knees finally gave out. 86 acres. A renovated 1960s farmhouse. And a barn that's still structurally sound. I can still do the work in my head, Ray reportedly told a neighbor. My body just won't follow anymore. That's the quiet truth behind a lot of these listings. It's not that the land failed. It's that the person working it got older. And nobody in the family wanted to take it over. $86,000 for 86 acres. $1 an acre if you round the math, plus a livable house thrown in. The catch is real work. Ray kept this place running through sheer daily labor. Whoever buys it needs to be ready to actually farm it, not just admire it from the porch. Number 7 moves into stranger territory. A farmhouse and 40 acres in Marlboro County that's changed hands 4 times in 11 years. Every single owner sold within 18 months. Sit with that for a second. 4 owners. 11 years. Something about this property makes people leave, and it's not the price. $31,000 for 40 acres near the PD River Basin is a genuine bargain. What it actually is turns out to be flooding. The PD River Basin floods on a cycle almost nobody checks before they buy. This particular parcel sits low enough that 3 of the last 5 years brought standing water into the crawl space. The county's flood maps will tell you everything the listing photos won't. It's not a scam, it's not haunted, it's hydrology. And hydrology doesn't care how good a deal looks on paper. Number 6 brings us to Dillon County. A 150-acre former tobacco operation is listed at $75,000. That's roughly $500 an acre. A fraction of what comparable land goes for even one county over. The farmhouse is nothing special. It's a plain 1970s ranch-style home that needs cosmetic work. But the acreage is the real story here. Rich, flat, tillable land. It once supported one of the most profitable tobacco operations in the county. Then the federal buyout program paid growers to stop planting tobacco back in 2004. That buyout changed everything for towns like this. The checks came, the crop stopped, and a lot of families never found a replacement worth the same money. The land sat, prices dropped, and here it is, 20 years later, still waiting for someone to decide what it becomes next. Number 5 is where the story starts to turn. Because this next one isn't cheap because it's unwanted. It's cheap because almost nobody knows it exists. 48 acres in rural Williamsburg County. A modest but solid farmhouse. Listed at just under $60,000. And it's been sitting for over a year. Not because of flooding or structural problems, but because it's never been properly marketed. No real photos. No online listing beyond a single county tax record. Just word of mouth in a town of about 400 people. That's the honest catch with rural South Carolina real estate. Some of the best deals aren't hidden because something's wrong with them. They're hidden because nobody bothered to advertise them to anyone outside a 30-mile radius. If you've made it this far, that alone should tell you something. The good ones aren't always the ones with the flashy listing. Go ahead and drop a like if that surprises you. Because number 4 is where this list gets a lot more personal. Number 4 takes us back near Bamberg County, not far from where we started. 102 acres. A 2-story farmhouse built in the 1930s. And a story that explains a lot about why land like this ends up abandoned in the first place. The property belonged to one family for 4 generations. It finally hit the market 2 years ago at just under $70,000. When the last owner passed, the house went to 11 different heirs. Grandchildren scattered from Atlanta to Ohio to New Jersey. None of them able to agree on what to do with it. That's called heirs property. And it is one of the single biggest reasons cheap southern farmland sits empty for decades. Nobody can sell without everyone agreeing. And getting 11 people spread across 5 states to agree on anything is close to impossible. Roughly a third of Black-owned land in the rural South has faced exactly this kind of ownership tangle at some point. This particular case finally resolved through a court-ordered sale. Many never do. The house just sits there instead, waiting on a family that can't come to terms. Number 3 lands in Clarendon County, on the edge of Lake Marion. And this is the one that looks like it shouldn't belong on a list of nobody wants it. 63 acres with lake frontage. And a renovated farmhouse for $98,000. Lake Marion property usually runs 3 or 4 times that per acre. So why is this one still sitting? Because 60 of those 63 acres are landlocked behind a private easement road. The neighboring property owner has legally restricted it since 2019. You can see the lake. You can't easily drive to most of your own land without permission. And that permission is currently tied up in a boundary dispute. To be fair, that dispute could resolve. Access rights get renegotiated. But right now, you're buying a beautiful piece of paper as much as you're buying beautiful land. And that's a very different kind of cheap. Number 2 is out in Lee County. And unlike almost everything else on this list, there's nothing legally or physically wrong with it. 115 acres. A fully restored 1920s farmhouse. All for $65,000. The land is good. The house is genuinely move-in ready. So why has it sat on the market for 8 months in a county desperate for buyers? Lee County has lost close to a quarter of its population since 1990. It's one of the most economically struggling counties in the entire state. And the honest, uncomfortable truth is that price alone can't fix a place where the schools, the jobs, and the young families have all been draining away for 30 straight years. You're not really buying a bad property here. You're buying into a county that's still figuring out how to hold on to anyone at all. And that brings us to number 1. The one I promised you back at the start. Near McCormick County, close to the Georgia line, 204 acres. A restored 1890s farmhouse. Original heart pine throughout. A working well. A new roof. Cleared pasture. And mature hardwood timber worth more on its own than the entire asking price of $130,000. By every normal measure, this should be the crown jewel of the list. Gone within a week of listing. Instead, it's been on the market for over a year. Not because of flooding. Not because of feuding heirs. Not because of a legal snag. Because McCormick County has no hospital. No stoplight-sized town center. The nearest real grocery store is 35 minutes away, and cell service drops out completely on parts of the property. It's not unwanted because it's flawed. It's unwanted because true, deep, rural isolation is the one thing that price alone can never fix. And it's the same quiet reason behind almost every property on this entire list. Which brings us back to that mailbox in Bamberg County. The one with the faded red letters nobody's checked since 2011. The name on that mailbox belonged to a woman named Eloise. She ran that 41-acre farm alone for almost 30 years after her husband passed. Her grandchildren, like so many others on this list, scattered to cities 2 and 3 states away, and they never came back to claim it. The pecan trees she planted are still bearing fruit. Nobody's there to pick it. That's the real pattern running under every entry on this list. It was never really about bad houses or bad land. It's about people. Families that grew up, moved on, and left the ground behind faster than the ground could be sold. Cheap land in South Carolina isn't a mystery. And it isn't a scam. It's just the physical leftovers of 30 years of people leaving rural places faster than anyone else showed up to take their place. So here's what I actually want to know. Is there a piece of land like this sitting somewhere near where you grew up? A house nobody claimed? A farm nobody kept? Tell me about it in the comments. Until next time, I'll see you on the next one.